Have you ever felt like something good is coming, but there's a strange pressure around it? Leo, this isn't just a feeling, it's a message. And if you're watching this on April 20th, 2025, or near that date, you're right on time. Today's energy is powerful, and it holds a secret. A rain of money is falling into your field, but someone has paid a price to keep a deeper truth from reaching you. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness. This is not just another horoscope. This is a deep spiritual download tailored for Leo, a reading designed to unlock clarity, restore your inner power, and reveal what has been hidden beneath the surface of your light. The fact that you're here is not a coincidence. Something greater is guiding you. Call it fate, divine timing, or simply your higher self pulling you closer to what you've always felt, but couldn't quite explain. That quiet discomfort. That strange look someone gave you. The sudden shift in energy around people you once trusted. Your intuition hasn't been lying to you. It's been whispering the truth. And now, the universe is ready to speak louder. Today, the sun, your ruling celestial body, is making a subtle yet profound shift. This isn't just about astrology. It's about spiritual realignment. A karmic veil is being lifted. Someone close to you may have tried to dim your radiance, sow doubt, or manipulate what's rightfully yours. But the truth is already unraveling. And once it does, abundance, in every sense, will flow freely. I invite you to stay with me through this journey. This isn't just a message. It's an activation. But before we dive in, let me pause and thank you, sincerely, for your presence here. Every like, every comment, every new subscriber not only supports this channel, Eternal Mindfulness, but helps this growing community of awakened souls. Your energy makes this possible. And I honor that deeply. So Leo, if this resonates already, take a moment to comment below with an angel number that's been calling your attention lately. Maybe it's 111, 444, or something else that keeps appearing. That's no accident, that's your personal code. A cosmic confirmation that today's reading is meant for you. You've walked through so much. And now, you stand at a crossroads where your light will no longer be questioned, not even by you. This is where power returns. Where clarity rises. Where the truth finally meets abundance. Let's begin. There's a kind of knowing that doesn't come from logic or evidence, a sense that rises gently, like the early morning sun through mist. For Leo, this intuitive sense is part of your very nature. It doesn't scream for attention, and it doesn't demand to be proven. It simply is. Your presence alone shifts the energy in a room, not because you seek control, but because light, by its very nature, makes shadows visible. This is not arrogance. This is not performance. It's what happens when the soul shines unapologetically in its truth. Lately, you may have felt moments of restlessness or unease, even when everything around you appeared fine. Perhaps you've been brushing it off, telling yourself not to be dramatic, not to overthink. But what if that discomfort was never random? What if it was your inner compass speaking louder, trying to guide you away from surfaces that sparkle but have no depth? That soft tension in your chest, that quickening in your breath when someone smiles too perfectly, these are not coincidences. They're your inner radar, reminding you that not all that glitters is gold. Leo, you're ruled by the sun, not just a star in the sky, but a symbol of consciousness, vitality, and ultimate clarity. Wherever the sun shines, things can no longer hide. This doesn't make you confrontational, it makes you clear. And clarity, especially in a world that's addicted to illusion, can be threatening. That's why your light doesn't always feel welcome in every space, not because there's something wrong with your brightness, but because it reveals what others have been trying to keep hidden. This kind of vision, the subtle recognition of misalignment without needing tangible proof, is often misunderstood. Yet it is one of the most sacred qualities of an awakened spirit. It doesn't come from suspicion, but from harmony. Just as the body knows when water is too hot, the heart knows when truth is absent. There is no need to fight or explain. The deeper lesson is to trust this knowing. To honor it, even when others dismiss it. Because those who dismiss your intuition are often the ones who fear what it will uncover. There's a silent wisdom in the way the sun rises every day without asking for applause. It doesn't need to convince the night to leave, it simply appears, and the night steps aside. In the same way, you're not here to convince anyone of what you sense. You're here to embody it, to live with such authenticity that anything false has no choice but to fade or fall away. That is your gift. And that is also your responsibility. When you walk through life grounded in this kind of intuitive clarity, the world may not always feel kind. You may lose people who once felt close, or be called too intense, too much, too aware. But in truth, what you're shedding is not love. It's illusion. And what remains, what stays, is always what's real. Real love. Real connection. Real respect. These are the things that flourish in your light, not despite it. The more you align with this truth, the more peace you'll begin to feel. Not because the world around you suddenly becomes easier, but because your relationship to it changes. You no longer chase validation, because you understand that your worth isn't determined by whether others accept your perception. You simply see. And you trust that the right people, the right spaces, and the right opportunities will naturally gravitate towards someone who no longer doubts their inner light. So if you've ever felt the tension of sensing something off, of knowing too much with no words to explain, you're not alone. You're awakening to your role as a revealer, not a reactor. A light bearer, not a warrior. Let the clarity within you be enough. Let your peace be your protection. And when you feel that quiet knowing rise again, don't push it down. Breathe. Pause. Listen. And follow it, as if the sun itself was guiding your every step. Because in truth, it always has been. Sometimes, the weight we carry doesn't come from strangers, but from the ones who sit beside us at dinner, the ones who once laughed with us in moments of joy, or quietly listened during our most vulnerable nights. It's an unexpected tension, the kind that arises not from direct conflict, but from subtle shifts in energy, tone, or the way someone's gaze lingers just a second too long when you're celebrating something beautiful in your life. And often, Leo, you sense it before any words are ever spoken. You may not want to believe it. You may try to reason it away. But deep down, your solar nature knows when admiration turns into envy. Jealousy rarely arrives in loud outbursts. It wears a softer disguise: concern, comparison, even applause that feels just a little too hollow. It can come from someone who calls you love, someone who brings you gifts, but whose presence leaves you doubting your own glow. That's the most difficult kind of betrayal, not when someone hurts you openly, but when their unspoken resentment makes you question your own right to shine. The Moon and the Five of Swords appear not to accuse, but to illuminate. These cards whisper of deception, not necessarily intentional, but born from internal insecurity. Someone around you is uncomfortable with how naturally your light radiates, not because you've done anything wrong, but because it reflects the parts of themselves they've yet to embrace. And instead of using that discomfort as a mirror to grow, they project it outward. Toward you. In astrology, Leo governs the heart, not just the physical one, but the emotional center of authenticity, self-expression, and pure, unfiltered presence. You were never meant to dim yourself to be more palatable. Yet when others grow uncomfortable, you might unconsciously adjust, become quieter in your successes, shrink a little in the spaces where you used to dance freely. This reaction, while human, isn't your truth. It's a learned pattern, an internalized message that says, don't be too much. Don't make others feel small. But that's not your burden to hold. Just like the number 7, often associated with inner truth, contemplation, and the uncovering of deeper meaning, your current season invites you to pause and observe without judgment. Look not with suspicion, but with clarity. Who feels uneasy when you speak from your heart? Who only calls when they need something but disappears in your moments of joy? And more importantly, how does your body feel around them? Because long before your mind tries to rationalize it, your nervous system already knows. There's a practice, gentle and powerful, of returning to yourself through quiet observation. Not reacting. Not accusing. Just noticing. And in that awareness, something remarkable happens. You begin to see the difference between genuine support and performative closeness. You recognize that those who truly love you feel uplifted when you thrive, not threatened. Their energy doesn't shift when you succeed. Their presence remains steady, not just when you're down, but also when you rise. And this rising, Leo, is inevitable. But to rise without heaviness, you must let go of the roles you've taken on to keep others comfortable. You don't need to dim your radiance so someone else can avoid confronting their own shadows. You're not responsible for their discomfort. What you are responsible for is staying honest, kind, and deeply rooted in your own truth, even when it's inconvenient for others. Not everyone who smiles at you is aligned with your light. And that's okay. Life isn't about calling them out, it's about calling yourself back in. Back to center. Back to clarity. Back to the steady warmth of the sun that doesn't beg to be seen, it simply rises. And so do you. It's often the brightest lights that are questioned the most. When you carry a natural radiance, a presence that doesn't need to perform but still captivates, it tends to make others uneasy. And that unease? It often gets projected right back at you. You're imagining things. You're reading too much into it. You're just being dramatic. These phrases are not harmless. They chip away, little by little, at your intuitive certainty, until one day, you begin to wonder if maybe you are the problem. Leo, this is where the real test begins. Because when others cannot understand your insight, they will try to reframe it as arrogance. When they cannot grasp your depth, they will label it exaggeration. And when your light exposes discomfort they're not ready to face, they may make you the one who seems unstable, unreasonable, or too much. This is not because your instincts are wrong. It's because your presence asks questions their silence cannot answer. Self-doubt is not always loud. Sometimes it seeps in quietly, masked as politeness, humility, or the desire to maintain peace. You hold your tongue, dim your opinions, or stay quiet about what you feel, not because you've lost your truth, but because you've started to believe that expressing it might make you difficult. But in doing so, you begin to bend your energy in unnatural ways. And when the mind turns against the intuition, your entire vibration shifts. There is a principle that teaches us, what you believe, you broadcast, and what you broadcast, you attract. When you begin to mistrust yourself, your body tenses. Your decisions become hesitant. Your energy softens in a way that no longer feels radiant, but resigned. And from that place, you start calling in more of the same, people who question you, circumstances that confuse you, choices that lead to more uncertainty. It's not because you're cursed. It's because your signal has changed. But here's the powerful truth: you can change the signal again. Not by fighting the doubt, but by gently remembering who you were before someone made you second-guess your knowing. Try this. Take a moment to reflect on 3 things you once felt absolutely sure about. Things you couldn't explain logically, but just knew in your heart. Did time prove you right? Did your body warn you, even when your mind tried to be polite? Write them down. Look at them. And remember, that knowing still lives inside you. The journey back to self-trust doesn't require grand gestures. It asks for quiet, consistent tending. Meditation, not to escape, but to return. Journaling, not to make sense of it all, but to put shape to the emotions that swirl within. Daily affirmations, not to fake confidence, but to reconnect to the steady flame at your core. Even the simple act of standing in the mirror each morning and saying, "I believe what I feel," can shift your frequency more than you know. You don't need to be loud to be clear. You don't need to argue to be right. Your truth doesn't need to be defended, it only needs to be remembered. And in moments when the world around you tries to cloud your clarity, your task is not to prove anything to anyone. It's to stay anchored in the truth that your heart has always whispered, even when no one else could hear it. The ones who are meant for you, the paths, the people, the peace, they will find you not when you shrink to fit, but when you finally decide to expand back into your full, unshakable light. What we release doesn't disappear, it transforms. And what we hold on to doesn't stay still, it shapes us. When someone betrays you, undermines your light, or silently resents your peace, the human instinct is to want justice, to wait for the moment when they'll finally see how wrong they were. But Leo, your path has never been about revenge. Your path is about restoration, restoring your connection to your truth, your peace, and your ability to move forward without carrying the weight of another's darkness on your back. When your light shines and someone reacts with envy or sabotage, it's not because you provoked them. It's because your clarity revealed their confusion. Your confidence reflected their insecurity. Your joy reminded them of the places in their own heart that still feel abandoned. And while it's easy to take this personally, to feel punished for simply being yourself, there's something deeper at work, something that unfolds quietly, patiently, and without the need for spectacle. The energy you put into the world is not lost. It circulates. And when someone tries to disturb that flow, whether through gossip, manipulation, or withdrawal, they are not attacking you directly. They're creating a ripple in their own energetic field, one that will eventually return to them in a form they will recognize, not as punishment, but as an opportunity to learn. There's a kind of balance that doesn't come from fairness as we often define it, but from alignment. A person who uses deception to get ahead may reach a destination, but they arrive empty. A person who betrays love may find companionship, but not connection. What we do to others is never disconnected from what we invite into our own lives, because cause and effect are not moral laws, they are natural ones. Forgiveness, then, is not a gift you give to someone who hurt you. It is a release you give yourself. You forgive not because they've changed, or because they've apologized, but because you are no longer willing to be the one holding the pain. You let go because holding on is too heavy. You walk forward because looking back is no longer worth the view. The Hierophant, in the tarot, doesn't demand answers from the world. He teaches you how to find meaning in the patterns. His presence reminds you that wisdom doesn't come from winning. It comes from witnessing how cycles play out, how energy returns, how those who walked away from truth often walk themselves into deeper confusion. And you, instead of becoming bitter, become stronger, softer, more discerning. You don't need to make declarations. You don't need to confront those who hurt you with a list of their wrongs. Sometimes the most profound form of justice is the life you continue to build in silence. The steady joy you reclaim. The sense of peace that no longer needs to be protected, because it simply is. And in time, those who tried to destabilize you will realize they were never fighting you. They were fighting their own inability to be at peace in your presence. So when the temptation comes to shout, to prove, to demand, pause instead. Breathe. Remember that karma is not something you control. It's something you align with by choosing the path that frees your spirit, rather than binds it to the wounds others left behind. That freedom, Leo, is not something they can give you, nor something they can take away. It's yours the moment you stop waiting for them to change, and start choosing to rise. There comes a quiet turning point, not marked by grand announcements or applause, but by the moment you stop looking for validation outside yourself. When you stop asking, "Do they see me?" and begin to ask, "Do I honor what I already know?" That's not just healing, that's rebirth. And for you, Leo, whose heart is wired to lead with warmth and fire, this rebirth doesn't come through force. It arrives the moment you choose to protect your peace with the same loyalty you've always extended to others. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not because they're bad, but because not everyone knows how to hold what you give with respect. Your light isn't just beautiful, it's powerful. And when something is powerful, it must be guarded with wisdom. Learning to say no, to what drains you, to what confuses your intuition, to what once felt like love but now only echoes, is not rejection. It is recognition. You are not closing yourself off. You are choosing what gets to walk with you into this next chapter. The crown you wear, Leo, isn't made of gold or glory. It's made of discernment. It's crafted from every moment you chose to keep your dignity when it would have been easier to lash out. Every time you held yourself back from shrinking for someone else's comfort. Every single time you trusted your timing instead of chasing validation. That's the real crown. And it fits best when you stop adjusting yourself for those who were never meant to stand beside your throne. In love, this means slowing down when something feels rushed. It means allowing yourself to be adored, but not at the cost of self-respect. It means choosing connection over chemistry, and noticing the difference between someone who praises your light and someone who only wants to borrow it. The right people won't be threatened by your strength. They'll be drawn to it. They won't confuse your confidence with control, they'll recognize it as clarity. In your body, rebirth shows up in the small choices. Getting better sleep. Drinking more water. Saying no to that extra caffeine that pushes you past your natural rhythm. Returning to the breath. These actions may feel simple, but they carry the energy of devotion, not to an external goal, but to your own well-being. This is how you honor your vessel, with consistency, not punishment. With care, not critique. Professionally, this phase asks you not to doubt every opportunity, but to investigate it from the inside out. If a new path feels exciting but unclear, don't shut it down, sit with it. Let your intuition speak before your fear does. Let your inner compass, the one that has always known what's real, be the voice that weighs the pros and cons. You're not required to say yes to everything. You're only asked to say yes to what aligns. There's a teaching that says true maturity isn't about how much you know, it's about how well you return to yourself when the world tries to pull you away. And maybe that's what this moment is offering you, a chance to come home to the version of you that doesn't need to prove anything. The version that doesn't flinch when old doubts return. The version that, even in silence, radiates certainty. If that's you, or if you're becoming that, take a breath and acknowledge it. Type "lion face" in the comments to anchor it. You don't have to fight to be seen anymore. You simply have to choose to remain fully present. And when you do, everything meant for you will begin to rise, just as naturally, just as powerfully, as the sun does each day. Without permission. Without apology. Just truth, returning to its rightful place. You don't have to roar to prove your power. You never did. Your presence alone is more than enough. It speaks before you open your mouth. It leads without force. And now, as you step into this next phase, it's not about being louder or being right, it's about being rooted. In who you are. In what you feel. In the quiet knowing that you don't need to explain your light to anyone who's uncomfortable in its glow. You're not who you were before. And you know it. There's a stillness growing inside of you that doesn't shrink in the face of envy, or back down when others misunderstand. Every time you choose peace instead of proving yourself, every time you hold your ground instead of over-explaining, you are stepping deeper into your true sovereignty. That is your royalty. That is the quiet revolution of someone who no longer needs to chase belonging, because they've already come home to themselves. So ask yourself this: who still deserves access to your energy? Who truly honors the space they take up in your life? Are there people or habits that you've outgrown, but continue to entertain out of guilt, fear, or comfort? And even more importantly, have you honored the voice within you that always knew what felt true? The answers don't need to be loud. They just need to be honest. And as you reflect, I invite you to take one simple step forward: reclaim your space. That might mean saying no to something you've been tolerating. It might mean journaling your thoughts before bed instead of scrolling. It might mean getting outside today, grounding your feet on the earth, and breathing in the reminder that you are supported. Whatever that step looks like for you, take it. Not tomorrow. Now. And if something in this message resonated with you, if a part of you felt seen, understood, maybe even comforted, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share what stood out. Have you been seeing repeated numbers lately? Maybe 111, 444, 888? That's no coincidence. Leave your angel number in the comments, and let the universe respond. And please, if this video brought value to your heart, give it a like. Subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness, where we don't just read horoscopes, we walk with them. Your support helps us continue creating content that isn't just spiritual, but transformational. And believe me when I say, this isn't the last chapter. There are more revelations, more healing, and more awakening moments to come, and I'd be honored to have you on this journey with us. Leo, you've carried the weight of doubt for too long. You've second-guessed your worth, questioned your path, and maybe even silenced yourself to keep the peace. But that season is ending now. You're no longer just surviving, you're reclaiming, rebuilding, reigniting. You don't need a miracle. Because you, dear soul, are the miracle. And the world is just beginning to catch up to that truth.